What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of the Penn Sport Network here for the Penn. I'll be your host for today, Jeff Hart. Joining me today is none other than Stephen Langdon Jr. and Jake Slobotnik. How you guys doing? It's another beautiful day. How you doing?
You know, it's unseasonably warm, and honestly, I don't know how to feel about it. The fall leaves are all around campus. The campus is looking absolutely fantastic. It makes my day a lot better just seeing all the different color leaves and all the leaves on the ground. But overall, I think it's been a good week. Ready to get this thing going.
Kind of weird hearing you talk about temperatures because you'll wear shorts in any amount of weather unless it's 0 degrees.
That is not an exaggeration by the slightest.
I have to agree. It's been a very solid week. I like the unseasonably warm temperatures. If we can keep that rolling, that'd be great. But yeah, I think it's been a fantastic week. And Steve, mentioned about how campus looks right now. I told him this the other day, and I know this is off topic of what the theme of the show is, but IUP is a fall campus. It's
very much so. With the oak trees, absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Later, we're going to take advantage of this nice weather by playing a little bit of ultimate frisbee. But that's later to come. Got to get through the episode. But before we get started, guys, I'd like to have a quick word from our sponsors. Quick thank you. We'll be right back.
This episode of the Penn Sports Network is brought to you by Cook Chiropractic. If you are looking to end your pain and begin living the life you deserve, call Cook Chiropractic. You've only got one spine, after all. Take great care of it with supportive chiropractic care. The leading health professionals at Cook Chiropractic and Rehabilitation are dedicated to helping you achieve your wellness objectives. The staff is committed to being the absolute best in their profession. Their reputation and success rate speaks for themselves. You can book your appointment at cook-chiropractic.com or call 724-465-9160. Philadelphia Square Apartments. Their high-quality 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units are clean and spacious. Do yourself a favor and give Philadelphia Square Apartments a call at 724-349-0462 or visit philadelphiasquare.com today to book your appointment to snag a spot at one of their 8 locations for the 2020-2021 school year. And Villa 2 Pizzeria, where pizzeria meets bakery, and you can experience the best of both worlds. The relaxed family-owned eatery offers sweet, thin-crust Gioio's pizza, traditional Villa pizza, wings, burgers, salads, and more. Delicious desserts are provided by Market Street Pastries in Blairsville. Check out their sweet treats such as macarons, cheesecake, cannolis, cream puffs, brownies, and more. Located at 720 Philadelphia Street, dine in, take it to go, or get your order delivered by calling 724-465-2002.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks to our sponsors. As always, we couldn't do this without you guys. So, guys, I know you have a few updates for us. Jake, how about you? I know you have a volleyball update real quick. What you got?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Crimson Hawks volleyball team didn't really see much of a victorious side this past week. They got swept at home by not only the Seton Hill Griffins and the Cal U Vulcans. Seton Hill, they started off on Friday 0-3, and then Saturday they unfortunately lost 3-2. But they're still rebuilding. They still got a young core that's really good. One good thing from all of this is that Jessie Ignis is really looking great at the net. Her defensive game's looking well, and in the past few weeks she's really upped her kill game a little bit. So she's looking strong, which is great. And I think she's a senior. Unfortunately, she's leaving after the season. But the thing is that she can use what she's learned, use her talents, and pass them on to the younger generation, and that can generate a winning team. So Jessie, keep doing what you're doing. IUP volleyball. I mean, I don't really know how I'll say it. I'm not much of a volleyball expert, but all I can say is keep fighting. You got Slippery Rock coming up. You're going to play at Slippery Rock on November 1st, and then Clarion the following day. Then the next home game you have is Friday, November 8th against Mercyhurst. You got our biggest rival coming up, Slippery Rock. All I got to say is win that game, you'll be fine. I consider it a successful season.
Absolutely, Jake. I know all season we've been talking about how they're such a young team and they have a lot to build on. And, to be quite honest, years like this are just important and crucial to any team. When you look at the cycle of sports, you have to have up and down years. It doesn't matter. Yeah. No one is exempt.
And especially when you get into the college aspect, just because you got a group of seniors, then, they leave, then you have to bring in new freshmen. So, as time goes on, you might get a little bit older, a little bit younger, but it's that big cycle. One year you might have a really big recruiting class. One year you might have a very small class. So it's just how college sports go.
I will say this year has been a successful recruiting class for the IUP volleyball team. Brooke Little, Nicole Peterson, and Lizzie Virgin, all freshmen, looking great, and they could take over as leaders of the team. And if that's how the recruiting system is for the volleyball team, my goodness, I can't wait to see what they do for the next few years. If that's how well they can recruit,
Absolutely. Wow. Bright signs of what is to come from the volleyball team. Steven, I know you have a quick cross-country update. What's going on in that realm of the woods?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my boys in cross-country did compete in the PSAC championships this past weekend. Now, they still have more meets, but, this is, of course, the conference championship, and the top teams from the regionals were in it as well. The men's team finished in 7th place, which it was the 12th straight year that they finished in the top 10. So, it's okay. To finish 7th, you're about midway in the pack. 15 teams competed. But the main storyline was Sam Linds. He is a junior. He finished 29th and in cross country at, the conference championships. The top 30 finished as all-conference, so he was in the all-conference ranking. Finishing just outside of the all-conference ranking was Justin Jones and Noah Mandel, who finished 31st and 32nd, respectively. But overall, I think the men's team did, pretty solid. I talked with Sam. He said that he thinks that he can improve upon his performance. He feels as though he had a disappointing performance, but, all-conference. He's very honored to receive that honor. He's really looking forward to the end of the cross-country season as they head into the winter track season. But overall, over to the women's side, they finished in 10th place, which was the first time since 2014 that the women's team finished in the top 10, led by Paige West, who finished 31st. Unfortunately for her, just outside of the, all PSAC, but only a freshman, still plenty of time to go. But the name I want to point out was Ala Small. She finished in, let me see here. She finished in, it's like 81st, I think it was 81st place, 82nd place, 41 places better than last year. So a lot of big improvement. You saw a lot of athletes finished even 20 places above. I know Justin Jones and Noah Mandel finished 20 places or something better than they did last year. And on the women's side, there were several athletes. I think every single one of them did better than they did last year, going upwards of, like I said, 41 places, which is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for any sport, the biggest thing that you can ask for is just gradual improvement each and every season. That's all you can ask from your athletes. And great to hear that. A bunch of individuals out there, and we really competed well. I mean, 7th out of 15 is not anything to scoff at. Definitely respectable. I mean, when all said and done, definitely something to not snub your nose at.
And they do still have regionals left, so their season isn't quite done yet. They have an event at Lock Haven this week, and then they have, in 2 weeks from now, they have the actual Atlantic Regional Finals. The Atlantic Regional Championships, which I forget how many, I think it's the top 3 teams there go to nationals. So there's still a chance that they could go to nationals, even if it's not one team, men's or women's. It could definitely be an individual like Sam Linds.
Absolutely. Love hearing that. Great that they're having a season they are right now. Definitely the improvement. Transitioning over to my subject, the field hockey team has had kind of a week of ups and downs. They had a tough 3-day stretch where they had to take on Lindenwood out of conference matchup. They were 8-5 at the time. IUP Lindenwood, they were tied for most of the game. Blaze Guccini putting up the first goal. They won most of the game. IUP, though, the thing I loved in this matchup was they were driving. They pushed tempo, and they had the offensive advantage. They outshot Lindenwood 2-1. I mean, they doubled what they did on their offensive production, which was great, and we love that. I got to talk to Coach Agert after the game about that and how that was a focal point. But, with just a couple minutes left, IUP gets the game-winning goal coming off of Peyton Hartman. Peyton drove in there, got an assist off of Cuccini, and they just took that game with dominance. I mean, defensively held their own, kept them from scoring again, and took down the Lions. Got to an 8-7 record. However, on Saturday, that game was on Thursday. They then on Saturday had to go to Shippensburg, which is the number 8 team in the country. IUP has had to play multiple top 10 opponents this year. Millersville, which is number 1. They've had to play Westchester twice, who's number 1 in the country right now. That game not going their way. They were edged out 1-0 by Shippensburg. Obviously a stellar program. And, even though that one was a loss, I still see it as sort of a win. This was the second time this season the field hockey team has limited the number 1 team in the country to only 1 goal. I mean, that's definitely something to be proud of.
I was just about to say that. It seems as though when they come up against those tougher opponents that they do play better. I mean, it's just competition. When you're playing against the number 1 team in the country, you want to beat them. And to hold them to just one goal is very impressive. I think that's the second time that they held the number one team in the country. I think the Westchester game was 1-0 as well.
Yep. Actually, Westchester, the first time was 5-0, and the second time was 3-0. Millersville, they held them to 1. They were number 1. Shippensburg was number 8, so this was the second time they've held a top 10 team to one point. I mean, it's just really, they've done a really good job. They've always had a good, they've really been stout defensively all year long. That's the one thing that they've done really well on and gradually improved on. Their offense has just kind of been their sort of their weak spot in the season, but however, the Lindenwood game really showed me they had some resilience. They really showed us that, hey, we offensively are just as good as anyone else, especially considering Lindenwood is a team they don't see very often, and a very respectable team at the time, 8-5. So definitely nothing, definitely good competition. Coming up, they have Mercyhurst, and then they have Kutztown. Final 2 games being interconference with the PSAC. They're at a 500 record. It'll be tough to make the playoffs. They'd need a lot to go their way. They'd have to win out and have a lot really go their way in the PSAC, but still possible. Just a lot needs to go their way right now.
And you mentioned the record. I look at all the teams that they competed against, just the sheer talent that they had to go against, and I think really contributes to the record. So to be at a 500 record, playing against these top teams week in, week out, I think that's a very impressive record.
Well, and you talk about the competition. Let me reference the audience here. The PSAC is arguably, if not undoubtedly, the best field hockey conference. I mean, you had Westchester, who's been number 1, 2 the whole year. You had, we just got done playing Shippensburg, who was number 8. They played Bloomsburg, who was ranked 9th at the beginning of the year. However, their season kind of fell apart. They lost a lot of crucial players due to them graduating, obviously. They had to play, Millersville. They've had to play a lot of tough opponents this year, even in some that weren't interconference. Their schedule has been very hard, like you said, Steven. I mean, Ship did a great job. Westchester especially. Westchester at the time, I haven't checked on them since, but they were 13-0 a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just a stellar team.
Yeah, and I believe they are still undefeated as well.
Yeah, definitely one of the best in the country right now. But that's going to do it for our little segments. Now moving on to IUP football. IUP football this week, guys. Second shutout of the year, which is the most since 2013 that they've had. 35-0 against the struggling Gannon squad. Gannon came into the game 2-5 on the season, kind of struggling against the loss from Cal U the week before. Guys, what are your initial thoughts from what you saw?
I'm not going to lie. I'm not impressed. That wasn't an impressive win for me. It really wasn't. 35-0 against Gannon, who's been failing miserably this year. I think it could have gone a lot better. And one thing that because Steve and I were both at Miller Stadium when watching this, while IUP had a successful offensive game in the first half, scoring 14 points in each quarter, and later in the second half, it seemed like they were just trying to waste away the clock more instead of, trying to run up the score because, of course, winding the margin helps you out in the rankings. But no, they stalled a lot on offense, and it was just a very stagnant game. I mean, fortunately, they left Gannon with no points, which is fantastic. It's a defensive showcase, but overall, they only scored 7 points in the second half. And that was the only 7 points ever scored in that entire half. I found it hard because I was commentating for WIPFM. I found it hard to commentate, honestly. And I'm not trying to put down IUP in any sort of way. They're still in the national playoff hunt, but I was expecting a bigger scoring margin for, this game. I don't know about you guys, but that's at least where I was.
Jake, I'm going to disagree with you. And the reason why I'm going to disagree with you is because they were playing in very tough weather conditions. It was raining throughout the majority of the game, making the ball very slick.
Passes.
Yeah, Dwayne Brown, we talked about him week in, week out, but this game dropped 2 touchdown passes. So, in my opinion, the scoreline could have been a lot bigger. It's just that I think the weather played a big factor in it. It was the first, I would say, extremely cold game just because of the rain. It was around, 40 degrees in temperature. But now we're getting into real football weather. It was great football weather. And when you have a dry week all week, you really can't simulate that. I know a lot of coaches talk about, we'll dip the balls in a tub of water. Well, that can't really factor into what the conditions will actually be just because the entire field is going to be soaked.
Your hands are going to be soaked.
Absolutely. So I think as far as the game went, I think IUP did a solid job. They were very balanced. Quentin Maxwell made several nice throws and putting the ball in spots that only the wide receiver could catch it. Very solid job. The wide receivers were breaking away from the cornerbacks. And I think overall it was a solid performance by not only the offense but the defense. I know, Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about the defense, so I'm going to let you talk about the defense more.
Before I get going on IUP's stellar defensive performance, I have to agree with Steve on this one. Jake, and actually for a different reason. Obviously, weather played a huge role, and in fact, had Dwayne Brown been able to catch those 2 touchdowns, my hot take would have been close to fruition of Dwayne Brown getting 4 touchdowns. But my biggest thing was, this is a game where you need to rest your key players. This is a tune-up game. You're going into the hard part of your schedule where you're going to be going into playoffs and potentially have to play Slippery Rock again. And then if you're a team that's in a hunt for a national title, they easily have another month to 2 months of gameplay left. You don't want to go out I know IUP fans have kind of become spoiled at these blowouts against teams like Lock Haven and other teams like that where 77-14 I believe the final score was, but. Yeah. That was early in the season. Everyone was fresh. They were excited. They were pumped. New season. It's a little different when you're this late. You need to give those guys some rest. You don't want all of your ones going all out. And I understand trying to climb the national rankings, but a shutout to me by 35 looks just as good as blowing someone out 77 to nothing. I mean, to me, that doesn't say a lot. The weather played a lot into it. That's kind of where I'm at with that as far as IUP. I was very happy with what I saw. Quentin Maxwell was very efficient, 21 for 27. I mean, he came into the game 7th for passing efficiency, 5th in passing touchdowns. Really did a stellar job this game, 3 touchdowns. And, I was fairly happy from the offense.
Listen, I'm not saying that they did a bad job. I'm not saying that by any means. Obviously, holding an opponent to a shutout is a spectacular feat, especially in the game of football, and especially with the weather conditions that they were in. It was poor weather conditions. I'm not saying that it wasn't an impressive feat from the team itself, but I'm just saying, like you said, as IUP fans, I think we're a little bit spoiled. We've seen a lot of big scoring competitions. Even the slip game. We lost, but we ran it up 45-42, and it was a pretty cold day that day. No rain, but it was still cold. I was at least expecting, we take a 2-5, a 2-6 opponent to, blow it up a little bit. And you mentioned how we have to rest a lot of the primary players. I thought they played a lot of I thought for 3 quarters of the game they played their primary players, and then 4th quarter we didn't really see Jalen Reese or anything like that until later on in the game. They slowly worked them in there. I could understand where you're coming from, and I do, but I'm just saying I think I'm part of that demographic where we are spoiled. We've seen a lot of big rig competitions this year where IUP has really run up the score, but I think I was expecting too much from the game.
Well, if there was one point that I was disappointed with IUP, the rushing game. We came off of a performance last week where we had over 300 yards rushing. We barely got 100 between multiple backs. Not a single running back got 100 yards on the board.
And outran us.
I think the reason for that is that the running backs played more as wide receivers. We saw Justice Evans line up as a wide receiver several times. He had several catches, at least 4.
My thing is, though, in a game where the weather's like that, you would expect your running game to carry, and you would expect them to rely more on the running game, especially after coming off of a prolific performance. But I'm not going to be upset because the game plan worked. You don't need to adjust it if it's working. Yeah. But I want to get to the defense. That was the true diamond on Saturday. Let's keep it real here. Keefe got sacked 3 times, but that stat line doesn't do it justice. IUP's defensive line was in his face the entire game. Keefe was only able to get 7 pass completions done the entire game for a measly 72 yards. They limited Gannon to 72 passing yards. Let that sink in.
And anytime that you hold a quarterback to under 150, let alone under 100 yards, that's an incredible performance. Now, I know they're not really a pass-heavy team, but still, all in all, to only limit him to 7 completions throughout the day. They were playing tight coverage the majority of the time. The one thing I will notice this entire year is that they are not passing near J.R. Stevens. He has been a lockdown corner. When you are not talking about the top corner on your team,
they're doing their job.
They're doing their job because he shuts down every number 1 wide receiver that he stood by this year.
And it's not just this year. We saw it last year, too. They were throwing away from J.R. Stevens. They did not want anything of him. When you're named as a preseason All-American one season, I can't say you have a target on your back, but you're going to be, people are going to try to keep the action away from you just because of that elite player performance.
And
the fact they carried over into this year is stellar.
It's not as though it gets any better because you have Strader, who's on the other side. You have Shaq Jones in the back. You have Amendola, Lloyd up front.
Damon Lloyd. Oh my goodness! I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm impressed with that pick six he had. It's sort of like
Absolutely.
he didn't even. I don't even think he was trying to concentrate on catching the ball. It was just happy birthday. I have in my hand. Now let's take it to the house for a pick six.
Well, and
Absolutely.
you referenced Nazir Streeter, Stephen. I want to get into that. Leading this team in interceptions, broke up a pass in that game. I mean, Nazir Streeter to me has been probably. It's hard between him and Stevens and Shaq Jones to figure out who's like our top secondary player right now. I'd have to give it to Nazir Streeter. I mean, leading an interception, and he is involved each and every week in breaking up a pass or just getting in the defender's face. So even when they throw his way, he's not letting it happen. I mean, to limit a team to only 72 passing yards, and a lot of that came actually just due in part to the defensive line. Keith had no time to think all game.
And there's a reason why this is one of the top defenses in the country, just because of the talent, the absolute talent that is on this defense. And I know Coach Tortorella, he's a defensive-minded coach, and he's really installed this in his defense, what we need to do to stop these offenses, and has done a fantastic job all year long.
Yeah, because defense wins you games, and Tort realizes that. And that's something I think a lot of people see about college football or even professional football, that is. Some of these coaches rely on offense solely, but it's the defensive coaches that really win big title games because they know that defense can really win or lose you games. Offense can put up points, but defense holds opponents to points and can lead to a victory.
Before we segue into our next bit here, I want to add on to what you said, Jake. A little food for thought for you guys and the fans. I want you all to name me a single NFL or collegiate team that has gone to the either national title or the Super Bowl that did not have at least a good defense.
I could say Patriots because of shenanigans, but that's out of the question.
No,
but the Patriots have had a strong defense
almost
every single year.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I challenge anyone to find one where their defense wasn't at least good.
Look
it doesn't have to be elite, but it at least has to be good.
Look at Clemson from, last year they had, 3 defensive linemen go in the first
Crowell
round.
Farrell was a monster for them last season.
Yeah, so honestly, I can't name one off the top of my head.
I can't either.
No, I don't know. I'm sure it exists, but it would be a stretch to find it. But going into our next segment, we're just going to preview IUP basketball a little bit here. The preseason rankings came out.
Jeff, before we get into that, can we just talk about the super regional rankings very quick?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Go right ahead.
Because IUP is ranked 4th in the rankings right now. Top 7 get into the playoffs. I just like to say I am very confused, I think is the question, as to why Kutztown is number 1, even though Notre Dame, Ohio, and Slippery Rock are ranked ahead of them. Even though they all 3 of them had the same record, but I feel bad for the Kutztown, like the fans of Slippery Rock and Notre Dame, Ohio. Now I know it's only the first week, but I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there. I know there's a big game. My favorite game of the week is going to be Westchester against Kutztown. That's going to be a fantastic game. You got, honestly, it's like the Slippery Rock and IUP game. It pretty much decides who's going to be in that, in the conference championship game. But IUP ranked 4th, looking very solid, especially with their schedule, their remaining schedule being, not to say that's easy, but we shouldn't sleep on any of the teams. But it's definitely a winnable schedule. But it's looking very strong, very positive for the IUP Crimson Hawks as we head into the first week of the rankings of the regionals.
Absolutely. Jake, anything to add?
No, I just agree with Steve. Congrats, IUP. You're in 4th. It's going to be interesting to see how Westchester and Kutztown play out because I think there's going to be a shakeup of the rankings if that were the case. But, I'm content with 4th place. We're in the rankings. We have a potential of making it to the playoffs. Nothing to scoff at there.
Yeah, 4th place is right where I was thinking they were going to be, just because the top 3 teams, of course, undefeated, Kutztown, Slippery Rock, Notre Dame, Ohio, and then IUP, I think in my mind, the best one-loss team in the country.
Absolutely. Hard to argue with those rankings, Stephen. And like you said, undefeated teams. Slippery Rock, who has already beaten IUP. So arguably, even if you wanted to make an argument for IUP being in the top 3, they at minimum would have to be 2. At most, they would be 2. But going into basketball, preseason rankings came out. IUP ranked 11th already coming into this season. Guys, are you taking it or leaving that? Do you agree with that ranking, or do you think it should be higher or lower?
Is that the men's or women's?
That is the men's.
Okay.
The women's did not come out yet.
Okay.
I would have ranked them a little bit lower to start out the year. I know they had a very strong performance last year, but losing a lot of talent, I think sets them. Now, I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be in the top 25 because this team deserves to be in the top 25. Any team that Coach Lombardi coaches deserves to be in the top 25, in my opinion. But I believe last year they weren't in the rankings to begin the year, and then slowly worked their way up. But this year, I'm curious to see what Lombardi does. Of course, Wednesday. Now we're recording this on Tuesday. Tomorrow is the scrimmage game against Elon. I think that's how you pronounce it. So we'll have to see what the starting five is going to be. I think that's going to be representative of what their team is going to look like. I know it might be a small ball lineup, but I would have just placed them maybe around 17, 18 to start out the year just because of the key losses. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it, that they aren't deserving of the ranking. I'm just saying that I think you have to factor in the key losses. It might take a couple games to kind of adjust and try and game plan with what you have.
Well, and before you give your thoughts on the subject, just to our audience, in case you were unaware, 4 of IUP's players last season are going professional overseas. Marco Kovacevic, Willem Brunwick, Dante Lombardi, and Jacobo Diaz. That's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And I know that Willem is actually getting game time as well with his team, Feyenoord. And I think Kobo has gotten some minutes as well with his team, as does Dante Lombardi. I'm not sure about Kovacevic. I haven't been able to keep up exactly what he's been doing, but I know those 3 are for sure, getting game time and getting some minutes.
Okay, so my take on this, I agree with Steve. Maybe rank them a little bit lower. Could be based on the talent that they lost, but I think they have enough talent to fill in the spots. I think that with the amount of time that people got last year, Chucky Humphreys, Armoni Foster, and Malik Miller, that's a solid core 3 right there. Not to mention they bring the long ball. Chucky's got a good post up game on down low. The only thing that's in question is shooting guards. I would say that shooting guards because I think Dylan Benton's up for. I think for one of the spots, but I don't know who the other one is. Dave Moore, who we just got as a transfer.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see how he does.
I'm expecting him to be in the starting lineup, honestly, just because of his work that he's done with Malik Miller. I believe they both went to the same high school, and I think that he's going to be assured to be in the starting 5.
I think it's going to be interesting, but I would rank him a little bit lower just because of that loss in the national tournament. They lost to Mercyhurst, who I don't think was ranked at that time. I think that kind of shows where they stand. They could be a hit-or-miss team. They're a solid core, but at the same time, they're not one of those teams that can guarantee a victory each time. And the fact that they beat Mercyhurst in the PSAC finals game, but then lost them in the national tournament, that's a hit-or-miss. I could see why they maybe rank them a little bit lower, and especially with the talent that they lost, good reason to rank them a little bit lower. I like the fact they're ranked at number 11. It shows that we are held to a high standard despite the talent that we lost. But I don't know. I
hope they shock us. I hope they really do shock us. We're not saying that they don't have enough talent to be in the spot that they are. We're just saying that.
Hold on, Jeff's got that look in his eye, and I can see the hand come down already like this.
They're ranked right where they need to be. Exactly. Near top 10, maybe a little above, little below. I think we're underestimating one thing, and a lot of people didn't see this last season, but I did, talking to a couple of people who, watch the team, know a decent amount of basketball. I talked to my father, who was actually a commentator for Slippery Rock basketball a couple years ago, back when he was in college, he saw it as well. I think there were a lot of I wouldn't say conflict. I don't know what their personal feelings towards each other were, but whenever they were on the court at the same time, Malik Miller and Dante Lombardi struggled with the ball because their games were so similar. Malik Miller and Dante play a very similar game, very perimeter, fast. And Malik Miller, I said this all year, and every time he did, when he played the point, he played better. Malik Miller plays the point very well, and when he dished it, because he would either dish it to Brunwick on the inside, and every time Malik played the point, Brunwick balled because he knew how to dish it inside. I think we have, like you guys talked about, an elite 3 going forward. We have Malik Miller. Whether you put him at the shoot or the point, I think you should put him at the point and put Armoni at the 2, and then you use Chucky as either your small or your 4. I'm fine with that. But Chucky, like you said, his post-up game, I'm more about his defense. Chucky brings that elite defense, he is the motor and spirit of that team. At least that's what we saw as of last season.
I was just going to mention
he
that.
He got them going with some emphatic blocks, some big slams, and really got them going.
He's the new dunker of the team.
Absolutely.
Because he came off the bench when they needed motivation. Because he would just
Especially in that tournament. We saw in that tournament. Yeah. He came off.
But he would come into the game exactly the time that the team would be struggling, they would be down upon themselves, and he just slammed one home, and then all of a sudden the team did a complete 180, and they were confident in themselves. They were ready to play.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Chucky at the four simply because Malik and Chucky are known to be very good friends. I think if you had Malik running, even the shooting guard or the point, he would get it inside to feed him the four. You know, he could feed a big man more than he could really feed one of his outside wings. I really think we could see that connection there because Malik, the one thing I want to see from him this year, his offensive game is superb. It's there. We know it's there. We saw him go off a couple times. I want to see him get more consistent. Last year, he had a couple of big games, then he'd be off a game or two. A couple of big games. Dante, we saw at the beginning of the season, was kind of streaky, but then when the tournament and the big lights were on, he stepped up. He came up big time. I want to see Malik do that and be consistent all year because we saw when his shot wasn't falling, he'd keep shooting, which you got to give him credit for, but Malik kind of wouldn't shoot himself out of the slump. He would just keep shooting.
And then I think another thing was that, I was being sideline reporter for the closing part of the season. I did see Armoni Foster was struggling. It looked to be shin cramps or shin splints along those lines. And I think that was one of the things that we never really saw just because he would come off to the sideline. He would put bags of ice on his shins and on his legs. Now, I don't know if that's just something he does or if that was just because he was dealing with nagging injuries. But I'm interested to see how he does just because he's going to have a bigger role this year. He's not going to be – he could be the sixth man, but he's going to be relied upon
I think
a
he'll
lot
be the.
more.
I think he will be like a Danny Green type of guy. He's going to sit along the perimeter, give you solid defensive performances. He'll lock your guy up along the perimeter, a great perimeter defender, but he's going to get you threes.
I was just going to mention that he's a very good three-point shooter. When he is on his game, he can score 21
Probably
points.
the best catch and shoot guy on the team, in my estimation, as
Absolutely.
far as what we saw last season. But running out of time here, guys. One last thing before we send off the episode. Athletes of the week, who you got?
I'm going to go Sam Lins, all PSAC contender, all PSAC runner. Very good job to him this week. And keep on running, keep on, having those big successes. Good luck for the team.
Jake?
I got to say Damon Lloyd. That pick six, I think it sort of put the nail in the coffin for the Gannon Knights in the football game. And the fact that he really didn't try to do it, it just happened. It was one of those things, and he just had it, took it to the house for a pick six, put more points on the board. Damon Lloyd's got my pick.
I'm going to actually have to go with Blaise Cuccini simply because she's been on fire this season. She's in the top three as far as a scoring category goes for the Crimson Hawks. In that Lindenwood game, she put up a goal and then assisted on the other goal that won them the game that gave it to Peyton Hartman. So she's just been on fire this season. Next to Brianna Labarski, I believe she's the second leading scorer for the Field Hockey team. Don't at me on that. I know it's in the top three for sure. But definitely that's going to be my pick for this week. But, as always, thank you guys. We couldn't do this without you. Read the Pen every Tuesday and Friday. Weekly editions, new stuff coming to TPSN every week. We're going to have a new interview. Steven, you're going to be interviewing the head coach of the tennis team coming up.
We're working on a very special project, and it's going to be done hopefully within the next 2 weeks. But you'll have to stay tuned and find out what's going on with that. But, yeah, a lot of stuff happening. I've been running around doing a whole bunch of stuff other than, schoolwork and everything. I've been trying to set up interviews and stuff like that. So big things are coming, and hopefully you guys like it.
Absolutely. Great stuff to be coming. Thank you guys. That's all from us. But as always, thank you for watching. Stay tuned next week.